welcome to the show. It's been a very turbulent time here at We Are Change Melbourne, dealing with legal matters, but as they say, the show must go on. I have a great guest for you today. I'm sure many in the truth community will know his achievements and a lot of the work that he has accomplished. I bring to you Michael Griffith from Café Lockdown. Let's go to that interview now. Welcome to the show, Michael. We first met during the tradies protest. It was very chaotic. We were catching trams, trying to avoid the onslaught of attacks from police. Since then, you've gone from strength to strength. Thanks for coming on the broadcast. How are you going there today?
Yeah, it's okay. I'm heading to the protest for Dr. Hobart today, who is at the Supreme Court, I believe, at 10:30. So that'll be interesting. But apart from that, I've sort of just taking a week off, just because we were on the road for about 115 days. So yeah, I'm just sort of taking a break.
Yeah, which is smart too. It's good to recalibrate and refocus and re-energize too, because it can be very mentally draining, and yeah, it can really take its toll. But yeah, it's wonderful that you're showing dedication to your country and supporting fellow activists and people that have put themselves out there and sacrificed everything. That shows tremendous character. What was the pivotal moment that you got involved in the movement and decided to start the group Café Lockdown? How did you come up with that name as well?
Well, it was originally called Café Lockdown because all the cafes were locked. But then when they opened, I wasn't allowed in. So I was locked out of cafes. I just thought it sounded good. That was it. There's no other real thing to it. The pivotal moment, I think, it's hard to remember. There was, when it all started happening, they started cancelling prominent scientists. And I couldn't understand, in the midst of pandemic, why you would not allow prominent virologists to speak. And then I started doing a few, like, stand in the parks. But because I was a producer with a theatre company, when I was at this stand in the park, I realised I think I can reach more people doing this another way. So I started the Café Lockdown to see whether I could. Also, I was a playwright, but as soon as they announced that they were going to segregate audiences, that day I basically threw my career away because I said my company's not playing segregated audiences, and that very day I set up Café Lockdown.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, that shows great principle as well. Not allowing for audiences to be segregated, and it is a very catchy name as well because people were suffering immensely from even simple pleasures like going to a coffee shop, meeting up with friends, going to the movies. They were deprived from that. And yes, that led to a lot of depression. I think they break people down on so many different levels, don't they? So people can relate to that, being locked out of cafes. And yes, we cannot forget the hellish conditions we all faced. Many people found it demoralizing, and especially going through the city, having to look over your shoulder, not knowing if police are going to attack, people going to be corralled, kettled in like animals, and shot at with rubber bullets, sprayed with tear gas. The list goes on. People were living in immense fear, and that's no way for adults to be treated. And the trauma still remains for many, doesn't it?
But you know, it's interesting. I just got sent a text by someone talking to some Victorian tourists in Cairns, and they love Dan. They think he's brought infrastructure, and they think the police had a right to shoot the protesters at the shrine. They think, and this is Victorians, and they're so far removed from what I think. You're thinking, wow, can there ever be any unity here again? Because, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, some people have been misinformed. They've been duped by the mainstream media. They swallow the propaganda hook, line, and sinker, and they act out of fear and are very irrational. And proper logic goes out the window as well when people haven't got the clarity, the presence of mind to make accurate and logical decisions. So that plays a part of it as well. And
do you wonder though? I mean, critical thinking should really be a survival instinct, because you're in a situation you've never been to. You've got to critically think your way out of it. But in a communist system or a Marxist system or any system of a dictator, if you're caught critically thinking or questioning, that could see you ending up in a gulag or just disappearing. This is reality. So I actually wonder if the reason people aren't critically thinking is because they realize it's dangerous. We're not there yet, but we're heading towards this time where if you question, you stand out, then you're seen as one of, basically one of the anti. They've already set up the bad people, the unwanted, the unwashed. That's us,
yeah.
Or that's, and so because I met some teachers on the road whose principal had his leg cut off through a blood clot. It went from his hip right the way down to his ankle. And he didn't want anyone to know. So he doesn't leave the house. He doesn't want anyone to mention the fact that he doesn't have a leg, even though he doesn't have a leg. So there's nothing to mention. It's just, but that's how terrified they are of being associated with us.
That makes sense as well, because there is a stigma attached to anybody that speaks their mind. They go outside the parameters of what they've been told to think, feel, and act, and they feel like they might be judged, persecuted by their friends and family, and that wreaks havoc on their mind as well. And even that step further, will they end up at one of these government black sites? Will they be held against their will, put into a forced re-education camp that is torturous? I mean, that's next level, but that is definitely something that has to be factored in, especially when you see them making examples out of people on the mainstream media. Anybody that was out of their 5 kilometre zone, or if they've absconded from police when they've got the flu, they are looked at like fugitives and treated like criminals. And that's very frightening reality, isn't it?
It's the same with those football players who spoke up that day on the footy show, and everybody was cheering them, and then they're all back down and forced to apologise. And this is a control. Why do they have to apologise? They're just having the say, but you're not allowed to have your say anymore.
Absolutely right, and that's a very important fact as well. A lot of people don't want to jeopardise their careers, especially when they've worked so hard, they've done so much education, they've gone right. Very elite profession. They don't want to ruin that, so they're willing to toe the line by their corporate masters, and that's a very sad predicament to be in. Other people have scale of things and they've walked away, and that's very heartbreaking as well, to sacrifice everything you've worked so hard for just to have your medical freedom. And that shows great morals and character, doesn't it? It's strange. That's right. It shows the true Australian spirit as well, when people are dedicated to freedom and continue to stand up for human rights, even travelling up to Canberra as well. That was a very powerful time in history. A lot of people coming together, and that sent a very clear message to the government that we want peace and prosperity, didn't it?
We want freedom. Yeah, we
Yeah.
want freedom. We don't want tyranny. But they ignored it. You know, they said there was only 10,000 there. The chief commissioner lied and said there was only 10,000. It's incredible, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And just the whole atmosphere as well. So many Australians and people turning up were very compassionate, caring and generous, and really loving towards one another. So friendly, polite and courteous, people going out of their way to make sure people were happy, and even, you know, sacrificing a lot of their time to hear other people's stories and connect. It was wonderful. And that's what really drives home the message that during some of the toughest times, that's when it shows great character, doesn't it? And people come together like that. Now, you conducted some very powerful speeches up there as well, didn't you?
I did a few speeches in Canberra. I can't remember really. But that's when I started recording interviews of people, because I knew it was historic, and there was no mainstream media recording anyone's stories. And so that's when I started recording interviews with people, you know.
Yes, and that was very tremendous work that you were doing, speaking to some of the people that were suffering and enduring these terrible times. Tell us about some of the testimonies that you heard from people there.
Well, there was lots of nurses who were there. That was the most incredible thing. It was just an enormous amount of nurses, and had walked away from careers, sometimes 20, 30, even 40-year careers. They'd walked away because they wanted to hold on to their body integrity, bodily integrity. And then they were being vilified by society as like somehow they were cowards, or there was just the vilification of these people who had literally fought, been on the front line when everyone thought this could be really bad. They'd worked. And, that's what I was saying, yesterday's heroes, today's villains. They really affected me. The other thing that affected me was a Hungarian man who said on the Monday after Epic, ABC Radio put out a call that if anyone in Canberra saw anybody carrying the Australian flag or draping it on their car, they urged them to call the police so the police could come either arrest them or move them on. And what that actually meant was that on that day in the national capital, the national flag became the yellow star. This is astonishing.
It really is terrifying, isn't it? To be patriotic and stand up for your country. People should be proud to do that, not feel like they're a target and they're going to be attacked for doing so. It shows just the level of evil that we're dealing with, and that next level as well. Many peaceful protesters suffered from radiation poisoning as well. We did a story on that here. People had burnt faces, they were unable to hold down water, and yes, they feel like they were definitely targeted. You heard this as well?
Yeah, I was severely burnt on a very mild day, and burnt like I've never been burnt in my life, and my lips ended up being black as well. And so I don't know what was used, but I do know for weeks later you could tell who was at Epic simply because they have these black lips. I mean, they were black, it's extraordinary. And the fact that the Australian government or the police would use this on their own people and then they get away with it. No one says anything. The mainstream media, no one says anything. It's just us that know something was used. Incredible.
Yeah, it's an act of genocide that's taking place, and a combination of weapons used along the lines of long-range acoustic devices, sound cannons, and a lot of trails, chemicals being sprayed over the top. A lot of people took photos and video documentation of this, chemical trails being sprayed from planes. And did you witness this as well?
No, I didn't witness that. My mind's still open to chemtrails. I know that it's becoming a massive belief all the way down from Cairns to here. Everyone is convinced they're real, but I have a few doubts, but I'm open to it. I'm really so far down on the food chain. I really don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and you cannot put anything past this criminal government. They'll use all their resources against us. They have proven this. And stayed right to the very end at the epic Campgrounds, didn't you? And yeah, and you stayed and you were very staunch right up until the final moments.
Well, we were interviewing women there. There was a lot of old women there who were basically holding the line. And I was very moved by them. And then the police came in. I was thinking, wow, you got all these police coming in to attack or basically harass or evict these old women, their grandmothers. Extraordinary.
Yes, they do not differentiate between the old and the young, the children as well. We've seen a lot of parents, they were really petrified. And yeah, it was a real disaster zone. And all the fear-mongering as well, and the demonizing of people that were attending. They should be really proud and saluted as well. And to the fact that they were trying to turn locals against some of the people that were attending, it was very sad to see. But some of the generosity from farmers nearby opening up their land for people so they weren't left destitute. This was very important as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was, it was a real battle between empathy. I don't know what the opposite of empathy is, but indifference or animosity. So there was those against us, but those that were really for us too. Because even when Epic was filling up, lots of locals were turning up with cars full of food to offer support. It was amazing.
It really is amazing. And even when you turn up, there was a whole welcoming committee there for everybody. And, they'd see the license plates and they'd say, oh, welcome, you're from, such and such state. It's great that you're here, and big smiles. And yeah, it was, the whole vibe was beautiful. But they don't want the public knowing that. They try and push us into and label us into some category as a fringe movement, when that's not the case. We have incredible numbers, don't we?
Yeah, well, everywhere around Australia I've been, literally every town has resistance.
They falsify these figures. They've done so many times, and we've seen this. The reporting isn't accurate, neither is the testing. So they try and bolster these numbers to convince the rest that aren't to jump on board. It's very deceptive. And the propaganda as well. So yes, there's many forms of attack that we must be mindful of, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Yes, very much so. So you managed to get back here safely, and you were traveling with a group known as the Deplorables, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's correct, yes. Yeah, 3 of us. So it started off with a bigger convoy, but we knew they wouldn't last because the fuel prices were too high. So we ended up, the 3 of us, just going town to town, interviewing people in towns about what they thought about the last couple of years. And that was it. It was really documenting it, like history, really, because they're trying to erase history as it's happening. They don't want to hear these stories, and yet they're real.
Absolutely. And they go to enormous lengths to try and silence people and stop activists campaigning for freedom. They've even shut down people's PayPal accounts and bank accounts.
They did mine. My PayPal account's gone. They got in contact with us and said, you can't use our services anymore. Dissociate yourself from everything. So it was amazing. Yeah.
And that should be downright criminal. If somebody wants to donate to a very worthy cause, they should have every right to do so. And nobody should be interfering with that. that goes against people's personal freedom as well, doesn't it?
That's right. That's correct. Yeah. Yeah, they've just done it. They've just done it to, because remember, they've done it to George Christensen as well. It's just happened to him. Yeah.
They get very desperate and they try and stop the truth from getting out. And you can tell that they're brainstorming behind the scenes, trying to close down every avenue.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, there seems to be, they're very determined, relentless, actually, you know.
Yeah, they certainly are. So you made it back down here to Melbourne safely?
Yes, we did. Yeah, you know, it was I'd never done a trip like it before. So it was 25, I think if we include the kilometres that Cret and I did from Sydney, from Canberra to Sydney and back to Melbourne, which was the first leg. And then from then on, I think it was 25,000 kilometres we did. So it's been a significant journey.
Wow, that's remarkable, isn't it? Just the amount of miles that you've travelled, some of the people that you've met. And they'll have long-lasting memories of the time that you visited, the interviews that you recorded, and what you've been broadcasting. It's very powerful. We need as many independent media persons documenting, recording, and really capturing this moment in history. It can never be forgotten, what we've suffered through.
Yeah. And I think Tassie's next, because we can't really say we've done all of Australia unless we do Tasmania. So we might just do a week or two in Tasmania, and then that'll be the whole trip.
Yeah, and you should feel very proud of that. And yeah, it was wonderful to see how many people travelled, the distances, the miles covered. Some people travelled from Perth all the way to Canberra. I mean, they literally spent days on the road to get there. And a lot of people even brought their whole families as well. I mean, yeah, they really put it all on the line, didn't they?
Yeah, they certainly did.
And do you feel we made a great impact?
I feel it's historic. I'm saying that's the womb of the freedom movement. That's where it was given. We gave birth to it because we came from everywhere, and that's the birth of it. The other things before the shrine and all the other protests are like the conception, but I really feel Epic Park was the birth of the freedom movement. Yeah,
it was a wonderful moment in time, and very historical, like you said. Now, a lot of people are trying to formulate all types of strategies to try and overcome some of the tyranny. A lot of people are looking at moving off grid now, aren't they?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I've met lots of people doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're looking at setting up some of these little societies, regional communities, where everybody brings their skill sets forward, mechanics and cooks, and trying to set this up. That's a very drastic solution, but it's definitely effective, isn't it?
Well, the other thing is, the concern is that will they allow it? Or will they allow it for now, and then when they're ready, come in and, you know, I don't know. It's a strange time. They're very determined to control us. I think the most terrifying thing at the moment is the currency, that they want to change to digital currency, and the credit score system, which mean people like you and me won't be able to even afford to pay for this because they won't let us pay for anything other than maybe food, you know.
Yeah, that's very important that you raised that, and that's a definite prospect that could happen. You go to the supermarkets now, and they're trying to put in these self-service checkouts, and a lot of them are card only. And
that's right.
Yeah, slowly they're wiping out the option to pay with cash, which leaves people cornered by the government. And a click of a button, and that you can just be locked out of your bank account. If they can do it with PayPal, you can definitely see the major banks will get on board with that too. and
Yeah.
and then that leaves people really hopeless, doesn't it? That's why
Absolutely.
a wise move would be to start stocking up on non-perishable items, canned goods, and really prepare for this worst case scenario, which is it looks like it's ahead of us, doesn't it?
I think I don't think we're through the storm, put it that way. Yeah, it seems to be, we're looking at a economic collapse, is what I see. And so why, with this economic collapse, why they've suddenly gone to the trouble of shutting down the whole world when we couldn't afford to do it. And so, yeah, it's a whole strange time. There's things that just don't make any sense, and it's quite baffling, the world. You can wake up, and the other thing too is, like, now I'm back here, you can feel like everything's normal, and that you can get quite lonely thinking you're going crazy, because to you feel that something really drastic and bad is happening, but you look around and everyone's just going through the motions as though everything's normal. The only, except maybe today they have a mask on, maybe they don't.
Yes, and that's important too. As they ease off some of the restrictions, a lot of people get lulled into a false sense of security.
Yeah, that's right.
Thinking everything's back to normal again, which it isn't. Yeah. They ease off some of the pressure, and people get naive to that. So we cannot forget some of the turmoil that we've experienced, the horror that people have witnessed, even at the shrine. That is an international war crime that took place, firing on people. All these events, we must not forget about this, because, a lot of people get distracted with their football games. They're allowed to go back to the theatre again, and they become very absent-minded, don't they?
Yeah. Well, I saw a thing the other day. It was for the awards for theatre, and I made a joke going, well, obviously this is for the best propaganda artist, because you can't it was very difficult to be a free speaker in the theatre pre-COVID, because everything was about not offending anyone, they and them, everyone. Your play had to have all the minorities in it. It was very, very difficult. But now I think a lot of art is propaganda art. And that's what astounds me about artists. There's, in difficult times, we need people like Dylan to rise up and give people a voice. But instead, all I see is the artists becoming the choir of the oppressors. It's just, everything baffles me at the moment. Everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it is very baffling. It's very confusing and confounding, the thought process behind a lot of people. Some say, well, look, they've got a roof over their head, they've got bills to pay, so they're willing to follow through with the agenda, no matter how much chaos or lives are destroyed as a consequence. And some people are wrestling with their conscience at night. We see some people have resorted to drinking copious amounts of alcohol to try and deal with it, because they know it doesn't sit right with them. So they're trying to escape that, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. There's you hope so. You hope so. You hope that they're struggling with it, because I know everyone in our movement is. We just look at it like we can see the emperor's naked, but I don't know. It's I've always been very interested in what links the freedom movement together. What is it about us? Because we're very different people, that we can all see that there's something wrong, and we can see it so clearly, and yet the rest of the world doesn't seem to see it at all. In fact, they just think we're nuts.
Yeah, and that's how the mainstream media propagate a lot of these agendas. and they try and demonize people. And it's very one-sided, the reporting. It's very biased, and anybody that has a conflicting opinion, they get cut off air straight away, don't they?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
they'll do anything possible to stop the truth getting out. And you can see that. And even the billboards and the marketing of this event, and they've pushed it on every single level.
Well, there's another, they're also trying to normalize abnormal things, like thinking, are they really they're going to stop drinking tea? I mean, amazed the tea companies don't sue the papers to go prove it, Yeah,
that's right. A lot of common sense just seems to be erased when it comes down to this, and a lot of people just have no free and independent thought. They just let the government do all the thinking for them, and that's when they get led into a disaster zone. And before they realise it, it's too late.
Yeah, my son told me, one of his friends said to him, he doesn't worry about things like this. He lets the government do all this thinking and he'll just do what he's told. And he realizing, I quite admire him for saying it, because this is the truth. This is what a lot of people feel like, and we're just not used to the government maybe being the problem, which I feel that they are at the moment.
Absolutely. And anybody with a reasonable IQ, you'd like to hope that they can see this eventually, and better late than never as well. A lot of it, people have their ego attached as well. They don't want to admit they're wrong and go back and say, wow, I really made a mistake on that one. I did some more research, because then they'd have to admit that. And a lot of narcissism as well. And a lot of pride too. That comes into play as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Well, I know you've got a big day ahead of you. You're very consistent with all your actions, and it's definitely worthy of tremendous praise. So you've got a protest to attend to. What else is in store for the future for yourself and Café Lockout?
We're going to make some announcements coming up, because we think we need to diversify into selling free speech. So we've set up Close Social, which is clo.social, which is our version of Facebook, but it's ours, but it's free speech. And because I was listening to these common law advocates yesterday, and they're talking about where they want to serve the media and tell the media, you've got to stand down. But the media is not going to do that. And so to me, the only way to actually attack institutions like this is to create your own. It's counterculture. And so that's what Closed Social is. It's only small, but it's to see whether people will use a platform that offers them free speech and no fact checkers. So it's got about 3,000 people on it at the moment. So let's see if it grows. You know what I mean? And so to me, it's sort of, because you can't tackle everything at once. So maybe just, I like the idea of generating free speech and giving people a voice. And I think that could be very powerful. So they're where my feelings and thoughts are lying.
That's terrific, Michael. You're a smart man, and you're using your intelligence for good. And it's very respectable. I wish you all the best. I look forward to hearing more of your achievements, and continued success with all you're doing. Thanks once again for appearing on the show. You take care now.
Thanks, Jeff. Take care.
Well, that does it for today's broadcast. I strongly urge those that want to support this show to donate to my legal fund. All your generosity is very much appreciated. It's with your help that we can overcome tyranny and continue bringing you episodes of the We Are Change Talk show. Be sure to like, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next broadcast where we expose immense amounts of corruption. Thank you. Bye for now.